my God.
We're going to do Days of Our Lives.
Who's pregnant?
Someone's going to die.
You've been talking about missus.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of the Board Game Gateway podcast, episode number 66. I am Neva, and I'm your host for this evening. And around the table, I have four lovely gentlemen joining me for our top 10 of 2022. We're going to go around the table. We're going to start on the right here. We have Mr. Ralph.
Hello, lovely gentlemen.
Next to him, I have Mr. Damien.
Hello, everyone.
Next to me on my left, I have Mr. Joel.
Hello.
And as is tradition, 3 times the charm. If you want to not be a host on this podcast going forward, do not come on it 3 times or more, because that has happened now for the 3rd time, because we'd like to officially welcome Mr. Leo on the far left over here to one of our hosts. Welcome, sir.
Hey.
There he is.
Hey.
So it's happened twice. It happened. It's happened twice already. It happened with Damien. It happened with Joel, and now we also asked Leo. And it is now official that we now have a 5th host once again for the Board Game Gaming podcast. Oh, I don't know what to say. Well, all right,
They
moving
proposed,
on.
I said
Anyway,
yes.
if this is the first time that you are listening to the Board Game Gateway podcast, we are your entryway into the world of board games and fun times. And on tonight's episode, it is a special. It is our top 10 special for 2024. We are just going to be going round the table, and we are going to be going down, up from 10, and we are going to be telling you our top 10 games and why they are our top 10 games. This is part 1 of a 2-part. We are going to split this up into 2 parts. So if you are watching this one...
This is our 10 to 6.
It's our 10 to 6, that's
yes.
right. So if you want to watch, if you have not subscribed and you want to be notified when our 5 to 1 comes out, make sure you hit the bell, hit the follow, subscribe on your platform of choice. We're not going to bug around anymore. We're going to get straight into it. And what better way to get to know one of our new hosts than to let him start? We're going to start on the left side of our table here. We're going to work our way around. We'll start that way.
You don't want to do the random jumping around again this time?
Look, if you want to know what I'm talking about, go see episode 65. But until then, we are going to get straight into it. So, Leo, we're going to start with you, and we're going to go straight into our top 10 games with number 10. Starting with...
Hang on, are you guys ready to judge him on his pick?
Absolutely.
Always, every time.
Absolutely.
That's
Oh,
all
Let's
right.
do this, Leo.
This is make or break for me, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. So, Leo, take it away with your number 10.
I will. So I really agonized on number 10. I switched a few games in and out, and I really struggled with this one. I don't know why. But what I landed on is a game that I've really enjoyed bringing to the table with family, with friends, basically with anyone. I think it's easy to learn, fun to play. And we have covered it here a few times, and the name of the game is Space Base.
Space Base.
nice.
Oh, wow,
Space
he
Base. We
fits
actually
in
did a
well
playthrough
with
the
this
other
group
day.
already. Look at that.
So just a quick note on why I picked it. So Space Base for me, I mean, it's got dice. I guess everyone will find out over time that I'm a big fan of dice games. And I'm a fan of dice games where you can use dice strategically. I don't like dice that is just pure luck. So I draw the line. And Space Base really straddles that really nicely. So you chuck the dice, but there's a lot you can do with it. And you sort of build up an engine over time using the dice, using the currency you get from dice. You build up your engine, you build up your victory points. It's a lot of fun. There's no downtime. Like, there's just so many pros to this game. Lots of different strategic paths to victory. Just a really solid game. And like I said, low barrier to entry. So just a good time with anyone.
I can't say I disagree. We recently named this as my number 1 family game. Like, it's so good for all ages. It has the advantage of being open hand. So if you're playing with a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old that's never even played games before, you can help coach them through it. There's no downtime in between turns. There's a lot of interaction, and there's just really a lot of great moments. Everybody is weighing in on what the next dice roll is going to be. Whether you just had your turn, you're about to have your turn, or you're rolling, it really matters to you.
Yep.
And I think that's just a great thing for a game.
Yeah, and like one other thing I'd say is, like, there's a fun tension of you don't know, you can't get a runaway victory necessarily. I think it can swing very quickly one way or another. You could be behind for a long time, but then your engine suddenly like cranks into 1st gear or 5th gear. And you just
There's
smash
gears
it.
in rocket ships.
Or you get pipped at the line by this person who just wins the game outright straight away. But
Or that one person that buys
I
the
hate
expensive
that
rocket
I
ship.
win shit.
No, it's great.
I
It's
hate
great.
that.
You've got to see they're going for it and counter
I've
it, mate.
lost twice to my son because he's just gone, I'm going to go for the I win chip. And then they just proceeded to just roll 12s.
Reminds me of
Ridiculous.
Big Daddy, where it's like that kid that just goes, I win.
I win, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, Space Base is a great choice. And look, a fantastic start to our top 10. We're going to move around the table now. And Joel, let's go to you with your number 10.
So for my number 10, I also sweated over this one a lot. The 1 to 9 I had pretty set and it never changed, but number 10 changed about 15 times on what made it. There's probably a little bit of recency bias. It is my favorite push your luck game at the moment. It's fairly new. It has some dice bag building, and that is Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Very nice.
I don't know specifically what it is about this game, but I really like one, the iconography. It's really, really easy to explain. It's really great to teach someone the sort of push your luck element, and it's now become the gateway game for that, essentially, if I wanted to show that kind of mechanic and see if they're going to like it. I also like similar, I've seen in a few games now, but where, you know, there's the A list of abilities. Here's the list of abilities to just help you understand the game. And now that you've played it a couple of times, we're getting a lot more replayability. Why don't we switch it over to the B side, the C side, then the D side? We have different abilities again. Why don't you mix them up? Why don't we randomize them? The amount of games that you can get out of this before for me, it hasn't felt stale yet at all. It's just,
I do want to say, my wife and I have played this game a lot, and on Board Game Geek, there's files, and you can download new files, which are basically change the way all the ingredients interact.
Oh, no way.
So
It's like free expansions.
It's a free
basically.
thing that you can just download and print. I've laminated. I'm a bit fancy that way, but I'll tell you what, it gets pretty awesome.
And I will say as well, you haven't played Quacks, you played 8-player Quacks. I would strongly
8-player.
recommend. Granted, the expansion is really good. I've got no problems with it.
The expansion just adds one person.
I know, but the game actually, my opinion, is infinitely expandable. You just buy multiple copies of the game.
Yes, and that's
Okay.
what you've done.
And I didn't, but we played it, and then someone else had a copy, and we played 8-player Quack. It was ridiculous.
All right, that sounds
so
right.
much fun.
One of my favorite things about Quacks is, from a game design perspective, is the rat tail catch-up.
That's pretty good.
It's so ingenious,
I actually-
so on theme. Like, it's just brilliant.
I don't even know if that works, but it's just the fact that you get it.
It's helped
It's
me.
so
I
gratifying.
don't think it
Like,
works that well, but
I've
it's
busted 3 times in a row, and the people across the table are like, man, it's so annoying. Like, you're catching up. Like, but it's that fun sort of tension. Ironically, the game that I kept switching between, it was actually this and Wonderland's War, which is very similar with some of the mechanics.
Yeah.
But this just, it seems to make it to the table so much more.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think so as well.
It's a great pick.
All right, we're going to move on to me and keep going around the table. So we're going to go to my number 10. So my number 10 was on my list last year. It is actually, it made my top 10 last year. However, it has gone down 4 places since then. This is a big game. This is a big Euro-y game. It contains quite a lot of tracks. It contains a lot of replayability. And it is one of those games that I learned how to play it online. I had someone teach me how to play this game online, and I didn't really get it. And then I played it in person at one of our board game meetups, and I absolutely fell in love with this game so much that I bought it. And it's now in my top 10 games. This is Gaia Project. Gaia Project is a huge, complicated, game of efficiency and trying to figure out taking control of this little galaxy that we have in front of us. But whilst along the way, you are trying to manage your income, your science, you're trying to get your different powers. All of the races are asymmetric. There is a whole bunch of stuff going on here. It's one of those games that is really intimidating, even for seasoned board gamers. But once you get in, it's not for everyone, and I will highly, highly admit that. I think this man over to my right here,
I'm just going to say, I don't think it's that difficult. I think you just need to get good at it.
All right. First of all,
It's a skill issue,
whoa.
basically.
Yeah, it's a skill issue.
First of all, I won the first game as the Money Chickens when I played it. But second of all, the way that the game works is that there is actually a really big scene of people who this is their evergreen game. This is a game that they could play forever, and I certainly see why. I don't play enough of it, although Damien and I have played quite a few games of this on Board Game Arena since he taught me, and every time since that first game, he does absolutely smash the crap out of me. Yes, you do. I'll admit it. There are a few games like that. But yeah, this is Gaia Project, my number 10.
I'm just going to say, you helped me crack 220 points in that game.
You're welcome.
So.
You're welcome. Well, would
Give
you
him a
like to
couple extra
continue on?
tips.
Would you like to continue on and give us your number 10, sir?
I shall. I'll be
See,
nice.
this was one of his top 3 games last year. Now, he says it's always fluctuating, so we'll see how he goes.
So, I'll be honest with you. So my top, my 5 to 10 or 6 to 10, I really struggled with because there were a lot of games, and particularly this year, I've played a lot of games that are new to me that I've really, really liked. But the honest truth is, once I really reviewed the list, I realized that I'm not a terribly nice person, so I figured this game was a perfect.
I wasn't going to say it.
Number 10.
Fitting.
It's an opportunity to put a wig on, sit down with up to 4 other people, pretend you like each other, stab each other in the back, all while completely destroying the subcontinent. John Company.
Oh,
Is the game.
good game.
So,
Wow.
John Company,
Well
we've
taken the
spoken
company.
about it before, and I'm hoping one day we do get to do a really sort of deep dive into it. But essentially, John Company, it is a semi-co-op game. There aren't that many really good semi-co-op games out there, but the whole game is you'll have to work together to keep your company afloat.
The East India Trading Company.
East India Trading Company.
Keep it alive.
And everyone is taking different roles in the company. They're actually representing families who take different roles in the company. You are trying to negotiate. You are trying to fulfill your duties as best you can to make money, not only for the company, but for yourself. And then you are trying to retire these positions because retirements ultimately lead to points. And then at some point, you are making really, really horrible decisions as to when you are just going to break away from the trend and stab each other in the back or potentially tank the whole company and do all the things. The game is brilliant. It is long. It is...
It was 4 hours to play.
It's a good 3 to 4 hour slog, but it could be more. Yeah. But
Funnily
it
enough,
is brilliant.
I haven't played this game, and I don't think that I've not played a game and heard so many stories about a game.
Yeah.
Before I think I've probably heard about 4 to 5 hours
It
worth
is.
of stories in this game.
It is absolutely a game that produces stories.
And this is one of those games that I've only played it once, and it was one of those games I basically had to beg you to teach me because I'm like, dude, we've got to play this game. And he's like, yes, we definitely got to because he's played it. And you sit in and we go through the rolling teach of the game. And basically, a rolling teach of this game is basically you play the first round and then you can make the choice of do we continue or do we just roll it back and then just go again, right? But we did that first round, and you come out of it going, "Oh my god, how do I influence anything in the board?" And then you get to the end of the round 2, and you go, "As Prime Minister, no one understands." And all of a sudden, you just find yourself falling into a role and going, "Oh no, actually, I know how to make some money here. The question is whether or not I can influence these other gentlemen at the table to do it with me."
Yeah, you definitely build
Money.
characters. Yeah, and that's the thing. The game itself it is reasonably rules dense, but you will find out that there aren't that many restrictions in the game. There are very few things that aren't tradable or negotiable within the game, and that really helps.
That's what makes the game intimidating.
Yeah.
Because you can do anything. I can trade you my position, but I would like I want your position. Or I will trade you this favor, but you need to give me blank. And the fact that you can do so much stuff, that's what can be intimidating to a lot of people, I find.
So, John Company, my number 10.
No problems. And let's finalize our number 10. Ralph, we're going to go to you to end us here at number 10.
Right, some 4 great games already mentioned. I'll give you a 5th one. No pressure. So I absolutely adore a video game. And this video game I've played, I think I looked at it, I think it was over 600 hours worth, and I've almost completed it entirely. And I'm still at the point now where I'm like, I'm never going to put this game down. I'm going to constantly play it. Anyways, the board game came out, and I feel the exact same way. That is Slay the Spire.
Yeah, great choice.
So Slay the Spire is a game where you take on a hero and you need to basically get through 3 acts of dungeon crawling and beat 3 or 4 bosses to win the game. And you create a deck as you're playing it. I've played this game a lot solo. In the video game, you work through 20 ascension levels and then you can beat the game. In the board game, it gets to 10. I've beaten the 4th ascension level with all the characters in the in the board game.
Wow.
But what makes this board game fantastic is it gets multiplayer mode, whereas the PC version of the game just gets that with a mod, and it's okay. The multiplayer mode in the video game is incredible. It's so versatile the way you sit down with another player or a third. I've only played it 2 players. And you can attack each other's bad guys. You can play cards that influence the other person and help each other out. And if one player dies, the run is over and you start again. So you really are invested strategically as to when you draw those 3 cards at the end of a fight and you add a card to your deck, you're like, how can I help the other player as well? And that thought process changes the way that changes from the video game to the board game
Yep.
because you change the way you play the game. Then all of a sudden you're looking at cards that used to be terrible, now they're amazing in this context.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this
Okay.
board game incredible. So I've
Fantastic.
had a lot of fun with Slay the Spire this year.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Great choice. Would you like to continue us on?
Yeah, sure. We
Let's
can
do
a
that.
snake.
We're going to go back reverse draft style, snake style. Here we go. We're going to go into number 9, and we're going to start off with Mr. Ralph.
So my number
number
10
9.
was a new one to my list, and my number 9 is also a new one to my list, I believe. I don't remember my list from last year, but I think this is a new
It
one.
wasn't
Tell
on
you?
there.
Would you like me to tell you?
I will announce it shortly. That's okay. But this is a Euro-style game of up to 4 players, and it's driven by cards and a big map on the board. Now, you want to take a guess as to what my number 9 is?
I'll take a guess.
Yeah, go for it.
Concordia?
Close. It is Brass Birmingham.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Brass Birmingham is my number 9 this year.
I completely blanked when you
I've-
said all that, and that makes so much sense.
In
now.
all honesty, I've probably only played the game maybe 6 or 7 times. But every time I've played it, the game is different. And I love how your turns are affected by what other players do. And you think, what's my best out of all the options I have in front of me? And to me, that's the sign of what makes a great game, where you can't necessarily do what you want to do, but you're trying to make the best out of your situation.
Yeah, it's a great. Brass Birmingham is one of those games that just always, we talked about with John Company, Joel. This one is one of those games that also creates stories, but for stories of the interactivity of
It's
how
the
this game works.
it's the
Yeah.
strategic planning. Like I played a game with yourself, Nee, and Damo one year, and Damo strategically did one last final move play, and I fell into his trap, and he ended up beating me, or he won the game because I fell into his trap.
In
and
that particular game,
and,
you basically shunted me out of coal, and I was
Yeah,
there for the whole
yeah,
second age.
that's
I'm like,
right.
Yep, they're gonna bring it in so that I can get access to coal. And Damo basically went, "Nah, if you want coal, you got to come get it." I'm like, "No,
so,
but
like-
I really need you to do it for me." He's like, "Nah, stuff it."
the game can be a lot to teach, and you wouldn't have a great game going up against a first-time player typically. But once people understand it, it's an amazing game to play,
Yeah.
and I always look forward to playing this game.
Yeah, that's all right. All right, we're gonna move from Ralph's number 9, which is Brass Birmingham. Now we're gonna come back to you, Damo.
Thank you. So for 9th game in the list, it's a game that I've gotten to play a few times this year. You basically take on a hero or a villain, depending on your point of view. You get to tromp around the countryside and try and take out towns and villages and caverns, and you get to fight orcs and you get to fight dragons. You get to do all sorts of things. I've often said it's the best solo game ever. I still maintain it is. But I'm also going to say it's also one of the best co-op games I've ever played as well. It's really good co-op. And that's Mage Knight.
Yep.
What a
Okay.
banger!
Yeah, Mage Knight is still one of the
Classic.
best games I've ever played. It's effectively a deck builder where hand management is really, really important, because hand management also acts as a timekeeper in the game. You always feel like you're a genius when you when you really, really puzzle out how to take particular action, even if it's something as simple as I need to get from point A to point B, and I need to make sure I have the right cards available or enough action points available, depending if you're going to use those cards as just generic cards, to then be able to enter that cavern and take out what I think is going to be a dragon in there. Or I need to make sure that I don't play so many cards because I really want to be able to take one more turn after this. It's a game that always leaves you feeling like you could do better. And every time I've played it, the card market's always felt very different. Whether it be just the advanced cards, whether it be the relics that you can win, or whether it be the spells that come out. I don't think I've ever seen the market stack up the same way twice.
No,
ever.
never. I love how you can just find a really broken combination.
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, and so and the whole time you're doing this and you're thinking, okay, I need to make sure I build my deck and have the right cards in hand. So that way on night 3, I need to be able to get to the last city, and I know I'm going to have a ridiculous fight available in front of me. The game's brilliant. There are now so many different modes you can play, particularly on BGG. If you go on there, communities come up with their own tile layouts and modes and stuff like that.
There's a campaign as well.
There's a campaign now as well.
Wow.
Game's brilliant. Mage Knight.
Perfect. I look forward to one day actually playing that game. That's one of the few games that really does intimidate me because both Ralph and Damo have talked it up. I'm like, oh god, I don't know. But I've said that about a lot of games and I'm liking it. So anyway, all right, we're going to move on to my number 9 now, and my number 9 game is a new game to my top 10. But it wasn't in the top 10 last year. So this one has jumped a couple of places. This is a game that I've had a chance to play a few more times this year, and a game that, similar to Gaia Project, when I first played it, I was a bit intimidated by the systems that were in place, and I happened to be playing the game against people who had known this game, so there was a lot of stuff where, you know, I was like, okay, going into the first game going, all right, I'm just going to try and come out of this game not being bankrupt, and I'll see if I can do that. And this is one of those games that really does require, really will not be good for a new player if you're playing against people who are really good at the game. However, Age of Steam is a game that
I thought it was.
I have really fallen in love with more this year. So our friend James, he owns the game, and he owns all of the acrylic accoutrements that go with it.
nice.
And Damien here loves it. And it is a really big economic train game where all you're trying to do is deliver stuff throughout the board, but you are trying to take, the game plays in 2 phases where there's essentially an auction where we're auctioning off, different things in the board of like who goes first, so you can get first pick, and your choices from round 1 really matter. And that's why this game is so intimidating to people, because the game itself, every choice from round 0 really does matter. And that can be super intimidating, and it can also be super debilitating to your game. So, as I said, in the very first game I ever played of this, I went into it just going, I know I'm not going to win this game, but I just want to try and get not bankrupt, because James said, if you come out of this in the black, that's a very good first game. And I went, okay. And so I did that. And then the next few games I went, okay, I'm okay about being in the black, but now I want to make that mod some money. I want my choo-choos to give me the bling bling, right? And I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoy playing Age of Steam, and I really love the fact that there are so many maps now that are coming out, all the special maps. So they released, they've just released semi-recently the moon map. So now, the whole everywhere is adjacent to everywhere around the board, which is super cool.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, these maps are actually quite old, but they're now being made more available. They're being reprinted. So it's really, really good to see. So look, Age of Steam's fantastic. I've played it a bunch of times. I absolutely adore the game.
Yeah.
Super old. Been around for a long, long time, and it's really great to see that it's still going, and maps are still being printed and reprinted for it. So it's really great to see.
It's funny you're saying the fact that your first decision or second decision in the game has an impact for the rest of the game. Although that might scare some people, for others, that's an amazing thing that they know that right from the start, every decision that they made led towards their win. It wasn't about the first 3 rounds is just the same setup that we do every game, and then let's see who gets lucky on the last round. And it's really rewarding, and that game really pays off for you planning ahead and having a great awareness of the board. And for people looking for that kind of challenge, it's the perfect game.
Yeah, that's what I really love. One of the main mechanics that I really adore is a central board where there's high interactivity. I love Brass Birmingham, like Ralph has said. So, and that's why I really love. One of the reasons why I really love Age of Steam, and that is my number 9 game. And so with that, we're going to move on to Joel and his number 9.
Well, after 2 quite heavy games, I would have to say this is at least a little bit lighter. This for me tends to be the main icebreaker game in our home group, or any time that we're doing games. It's the first one to come out. We can start playing when there's only 4 people here, then 5, then 6, and then it works all the way up to 8. And it sort of just keeps playing until we're kind of over it and you're ready to take on something else. This is Dixit. We did actually bring it up. It's in my top 5 family games as well. But this is just another game that just really has a sense to make it to the table a lot. It doesn't matter if we have a lot of heavy gamers coming today or if we have 6 all brand new players. This is what I would pull out. It's almost always the first one that comes to mind. It's never a game that we go, all right, I'm thinking of playing Dixit, and everybody just immediately agrees. Yeah, let's do Dixit. There's never I don't know if I'm feeling Dixit. Everybody loves Dixit. It has great expansions for it, which doesn't introduce any new rules. It just introduces more pictures and more fun and more themes, and you can get more invested if you really like space themes. You can go and get the space deck, and yeah, it's just something that it's great to get the night started. Everybody has fun. There's very low barrier to entry, and yeah, good
Love
times
it.
all around.
Yeah, I appreciate a game that sort of gives you a rough kind of boundary. Like,
Yep.
like the rules are so simple and lightweight, but it's really what you make of it. It's how
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to play it and how you want to sort of imagine and use the cards at your disposal.
I still remember one time we were teaching my younger son how to play, and he was being too literal with the cards, and he was complaining that he wasn't getting any points because everyone picked it. So we were saying to him, I said, you got to be tricky with it. So it was either cat or dog was the clue, and he puts down this card. And then we all put our cards down, and invariably everyone has pictures of cats, or there may be one throwaway card. And everyone picked the wrong card. And he goes, no, this was my card.
Mm.
And no one could see the cat until he turned the card upside down. And then the silhouette of the light in between bits of shadow, it looked like a cat. It
That's
was like,
clever.
I was like, wow.
Wow.
So, mate, you've gone too far the other way now.
Well, yeah, Dixit is I think a great game as well. I like that. I know my first two games of my top 10 have been kind of super heavy games, but there is
Yeah.
something to be said about a good light opener that you can get just to get you in the get you your juices flowing, get you in the mood to play some games, and
Oh, we've done this a lot when waiting for people to turn up
Oh,
to
yeah.
events or something like that. Yeah.
Jeez, we
This-
played this at the 40th. So,
Yeah.
we used to play Dixit.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's a great number 9 edition. And Leo, let's go to you for your 9th game to round us out.
Yeah, my 9th game is
Number 9 game, I should say.
my
Sorry.
number 9 game is my oldest game, I think.
Oh.
It is probably my most valuable game,
Crocodile.
and it is Crocodile.
Oh, wow.
It is semi-cooperative, I would say. Like we were talking about John Company before.
Maybe,
No, it's,
yeah.
it's cooperative with an element of backstabbing. And that game is Battlestar Galactica.
Nice.
Yes, BSG.
So I do like a thematic game that ties into the mechanics in a really elegant way, and Battlestar Galactica is exactly that. The theme is married with the mechanics and the game design so perfectly in my mind.
Yep.
It's still, I think, probably my favorite thematically done game. And so what it is if you're familiar with the TV show, you'll probably get a little bit more out of it, but you don't have to be. I've played it with people who aren't that familiar with it, and they still had a great time.
I think Battlestar Galactica was my first ever TV show, adult-ish show that I kind of started watching from start to finish. It was one of the first shows through the 4-season run, because this is back in the day of television where seasons were 24 episodes long.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica was 24 one-hour episodes.
And the quality,
And the quality
bar
was
was
spectacular.
always so high.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible TV show.
Battlestar Galactica was my first ever big board game that I bought, and I am ashamed to admit that it was one of my first ever bad rule teachers, because this is before I really learned how I need to approach teaching big games like
Yeah.
this. However, it is one of those games, if you're a fan of Werewolf, you're a fan of Blood on the Clock Tower, it has that semi-cooperative feeling, but then
Yes.
at some point in time during this game, the Cylons will get revealed or not get revealed. You don't really know, but you are right that if you are a fan of the TV show, you'll get a lot of it. Unfortunately, you cannot find it in print anymore. You
That's the sad part. There is another game which the name escapes me that
Unfathomable.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
uses exactly the same mechanics. So you can get that and you get the same kind of gameplay. But I really love the Battlestar Galactica theme.
Yeah.
And aside from the mechanics you talked about, the hidden, someone could be a hidden Cylon,
Yeah.
which already adds another layer to the game. You also have some great space battles. Again, the mechanics are really nicely done. Everybody has a different role to play. You're cooperating, you're trying to survive, you're trying to make it to the, your end destination in one piece while trying to root out the Cylons. It's just so much fun at every turn.
It was the first game that I ever realized that had the voting mechanic of we have a hand
Yeah.
of cards
Yes.
that is kept secret.
Like
And it-
Dead of Winter.
Dead of
does
Winter,
it.
Yes,
even
exactly.
Secret Hitler, that it's of the
Yeah,
and
Resistance,
everyone
yeah.
puts in their card at one time, then you all reveal, and there's
But even better-
I only have these cards. I don't know, what do you want from me guys?
But even better, there's a random card
Yeah,
put
the-
in.
from
So
the
you
deck,
can't
yeah.
exactly pinpoint, did this card, was this sabotage from somebody or was it from the random
Yeah.
draw? Yeah,
I,
just
I
fantastic.
actually went the other way. So I played the game not watching the show. And then within the next 4 or 5 months, my wife and I watched the show in its entirety.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And we played the board game again. And then we were getting the crisis cards and we're like, this happened in the show. Just having that experience, we've had a lot of fun with it.
But you also get some weird ones where you get someone, a Cylon who wasn't a Cylon in the team. So, there's
Yeah,
these
but
funny
it's still
things that,
fun.
Yeah.
They're not up to
break-
that
break
episode
canon,
yet.
but
But
it's
it's still
so
very
much fun.
thematic in that sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is my number 9.
That's a great
Perfect.
pick.
All right,
Nice.
that's number 9, and then That was 9 done, and now we move on to number 8. And Leo, we're just going to start with you, and we're going to come back down the table, and we're just going to be doing that for the whole video, up and back and up
Sounds
and
great.
back.
I get
So
to
go with your
talk
number
twice.
8 game.
All right. Well, my number 8, I'm going to take a similar approach to Ralph. So he called out Slay the Spire. I'm going to call out a game that is the newest. Like, this is a weird like juxtaposition. You know, Battlestar
Well,
Galactica, my oldest
you've
game.
got the highest ranking now.
Dead
That's the
Cells.
thing, yeah.
Dead Cells. I gave it away. Dead Cells is my number 8, which is my newest game.
I think you got a few Dead Cells.
I've got a few Dead Cells. But yeah, so Dead Cells is a fantastic game. Cooperative game. It's obviously taken after the video game, which is also a roguelike game similar to Slay the Spire. But where Slay the Spire is much more card-based and sort of building up your engine of new cards, Dead Cells is a little bit more dungeon combat. Right. So you're sort of going through each biome deeper and deeper into this dungeon, upgrading your skills, upgrading your equipment, and hoping to get as far as you can. The reason I place this so high, even though it's so new for me, is that every time I've brought it out to the table, we've just had a great time with it without fail. And that's been really impressive to me. I've played a lot of games. Let me give you a comparison, a game that didn't make it to my top 10 in a similar vein. So we have the Stardew Valley board game.
Yes.
Yeah.
We love Stardew Valley in our household. Gets a lot of play from me, from the kids, whatever. We enjoyed the board game, but it wasn't one that we go, yeah, we'd like to do another run of this. Like we'd like to play this one. We don't bring it out to the table as much. So I think from an enjoyment level, and we could go deeper into the mechanics and why that is in a different discussion. But Dead Cells just sort of blew things out of the water for me. So really happy with it.
We do have an
wanna play
upcoming
it.
preview video of Dead Cells coming out shortly. So if you do want to get a view of this game, it will be coming out to our shortly onto our channel shortly. So Leo will be showing us as a preview one of his first videos here on the channel.
It's just so, for me, it's amazing. Like, there's a lot of times where you see like a video game go to board game form and it doesn't quite hit, right? Like
Yes.
Stardew Valley you just brought up. But
Yep.
when you see a game like Dead Cells or Slay the Spire and it actually hits, you're like, they've done something completely different to it. They
Yes.
reinvented it
Yeah.
and it works. And that's amazing.
See,
Yeah.
Slay the Spire to me should have worked.
Yeah, you can see that
because
work.
it was
Yeah,
a card
yeah,
game, but a
that's
game
true.
like Dead
But
Cells
that's
to
the
me
thing.
Yes.
shouldn't work on a board game form. And that somehow
I would say there was some pretty strong pedigree in the game design of
Okay.
Dead Cells. I'm gonna flub the names because I should have written them out. But there's probably, I don't know, at least 3 designers on it. One of them was one that designed Seven Wonders Duel. I think it's Antoine Bowser.
Bozza.
Yeah,
Bozza.
Mr. Bozza.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some serious design chops that went
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the game, but they've done a great job with it. So really, really great. Great game.
Fantastic.
Might go higher one day. We'll see.
Well,
Gotta finish
it
it.
is a relatively new game, so we will see.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to number 8 from Mr. Joel.
Ooh, so this one for me is the first 2-player game that I'm going to mention on the list, not the last. But it is a limited communication cooperative game, and that is SkyTeam. I don't know if you guys have played SkyTeam before. The thing that I really, really like about this game, and I've played quite a few limited communication games. This is my favorite of maybe bar one, which we'll get to later. And what it does so well with its limited communication is it's really clear on what you're allowed to communicate. There's no gray areas, but the windows for communication are short. So you're not playing for 30 minutes where you don't talk to each other, which can happen in other limited comm games. In this game, it's only for about 60 seconds. And then we spend 3 minutes talking about, oh, this is why I made that decision and that's why I made that decision. And again, there's like a lot of great moments in this game. The thing that it really sort of cemented it as being in my top 10 of all time for right now is the fact that the game it's almost a legacy game, just short of having a story. The way that the game is played, you originally do basically like you're landing a plane. That's the objective. And there's ways that you land the plane, but the first game is we're just going to land the plane. And then the next game, they're like, all right, so you want to land the plane, but there's other planes in your way now. And then the next game, now we also have wind to think about. And I forgot to mention that you also have fuel to deal with. And then as the game goes on, they start mixing and matching these mechanics. Every single game becomes different. So last time we did wind and fuel, the next game is fuel and your brakes don't work. And the game progressively gets harder and harder and harder. And it really does a good job of easing you into the next level of challenge without just, we did really well on the last level and now it's going to take us 25 attempts. You can generally get the next level within 2 or 3 tries. It's just the right amount of challenge and it's such a rewarding experience when you get through it. And there's just, it's just something that it seems to make it to the table and play it on BGA as well. It works in both mediums. just getting a lot of play out of this.
I really want to play this game. This is near the top of my list of games to get. It's got dice. It's 2-player. I love a good 2-player game.
Yep.
It looks tight. Like, it looks really fun.
It's very like I've played a lot of limited communication, played a lot of co-op, played a lot of 2-player games. None of them feel like this game. It just seems to be at the top of the category for all of the different mechanics and the way that it runs, and it doesn't feel like any other game I've played before.
Perfect.
Very
All right,
cool.
well, good choice for your number 8. All right, well, now we're going to move on to my number 8. And so, having started with Gaia Project and Age of Steam, I'd like to...
Another heavy one?
No, I'm going to take
Twilight
a step
Imperium?
back. This is... No, this is not
You know.
Twilight Imperium. No, we're going to take a step back here. This is a brand new game to my top 10. It is a game that I have been introduced to in the last 12 months. Actually, I think I got introduced to it just after we did our last top 10 last year. So I've just been playing it for a bit over 12 months now, and it is a game that I really regret not having it in my collection at the moment because I really need to rectify that, but it is a game that I have borrowed often and a game that I have played in many situations. This game is That's Not a Hat. And That's Not a Hat is a game that Damien, again, introduced me to. He said, hey, but I remember when he introduced it to me, he goes, I think I have found the best new party game, bar none. And
It's the best party game.
yeah, and I was like, big call, Damo, super big
I
call.
also got the same spiel from Damo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, right,
That
let's
was
see
about
it.
Paku Paku, wasn't it?
No, and so when we brought it out, this game is such a simple game of just trying to remember, like, you know, if there is 5 players at the board, you just need to remember 6 cards in total, however many players plus 1. But the thing is, cards start moving around the table so quickly that all of a sudden, as this game starts going, people just start doing things like trying to deceive you by going, that's, hey, Joel, this is a baseball bat. And you'll be like, wait, did someone say baseball bat? Well, he said it so confidently. I think, it must be a baseball bat. What? No. But the whole game itself is so simple. It's one of those games that I have brought out at New Year's Eve parties. I've brought out at when people are here, people who aren't normally gamers, and you go, no, we're going to play this game. Everyone can learn it within 5 minutes. And every time that we have played this game, people burst out into laughter because everyone goes, yeah, I can remember one card. I can remember what that card is, and then it comes back around the circle, and then inevitably someone sits there and goes, what the hell is that card? And you're like, and every time I've played it, everyone will be laughing.
It's one of those games where kids are really good at it.
Yeah.
Oh, surprisingly good at it.
It's the best part is, and like I'm mean when I play this game because I have conversations.
Just
with
this
people
one?
while I'm passing cards to them.
Yeah,
And it, like,
love that.
Matt was furious with me because I'm holding a conversation. He can't help but respond, and I'll go to Teddy Bear, and then I'll just keep talking. Wait,
I mean, I gotta think about that for a second. I can't think about both at the same time.
Yeah.
It does really well. I think it works at all times of the day or the night, but I think it does really well as an opener. That kind
Yeah,
of
it
icebreaker. We're all kind of just starting to sit down, and maybe we're not really chatting too much yet. It's like we've just sat down and we're getting used to the place, and you get this game out, and at the start it's like, yeah, this one's a hat, and yeah, this is a bicycle, and then you get to your first lie, and nobody else knows, but you know, and you're like, this one's a orange.
Yeah.
And now you're into it without even realizing, and it does a really good job of warming
was
you
it
up.
New Year's? Like, it
Yeah.
was late, and
Yeah, it was
late.
New Year's Eve party in my backyard.
It was late, and we were in tears by the end. It was
What I
great.
love about this game is that at some point, though, everyone realizes you can just be super confident and just yell out something. It's like, yep, that's definitely a piano. And everyone looks at you like, wait, did we ever have a piano? But like, wait, you said it so confident. It must have. But like the moment also when you say, that's the hat, and everyone goes, that's not the hat, but it was the hat. You're like, how did everyone get it so wrong?
My favorite moment is when you pass the hat along, nobody says anything, and it comes back to you, and you go, this one's a hat.
Yeah. Yep. So
It really is this time. They
Yeah,
call you out.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's great. That's not a hat. Look, for me, a game that does what it sets out to do but does it perfectly is, worthy of being on the top 10, and it's my 8th favorite game at the moment. Damien, let's move to you for your number 8.
All right, my number 8 should have been in my top 10. It should have. So let me try again because English is really
Last year, it
difficult.
should have been in your top 10.
Should have been in my top 10 last year.
There you go.
Kind of rejigged my top 10 because I thought, like, it's particularly big on the podcast. We get stuck in Cult of the New a lot, and like, that game's really good. That game's really good. But I went back through kind of stats. The few stats that I do keep, I'm not very good at keeping stats. And this is easily my most played game. I have played this, and just to put into context, I have played Innovation over 100 times, and I've played this game more than double that.
Wow. Oh, wait a minute. I think I know what this one is.
It is still, in my opinion, the best Tableau builder ever made.
Yep.
Race for the Galaxy.
Yep.
Hands down.
As soon as you said you played 200, I was like, yeah, I know. What game
So,
this is.
Race for the Galaxy is nothing more than a deck of cards. You draw them into your hand, and you are trying to build out a tableau, and you are trying to do one or two things. You're either trying to have 12 cards in your tableau, or win, or you keep going to all of the reward chips.
The victory tokens
Yeah,
are all
victory tokens leave from the pile, and the number of victory tokens changes based on the number of players. Every card that you want to play, basically there are two types. There are sort of like planets, or developments, and each of these come in different colors. The different colors will give you they basically are of different value. At the end of the game, sometimes they give you additional points, sometimes they don't. But really what they mean throughout the game is the more valuable ones will often give you better deliveries. Better deliveries are worth more points, but they're also far more expensive to play to begin with. But the rub is that there are no resources except for cards.
Yep.
So in order to play the card, you have to spend the cards that you have in front of you. So there is this always really interesting balance of trying to get the right number of cards that you need to play the card, but then you draw cards and you go, oh, but these cards are also really good too. Do I just completely throw away all my plans and do this? But the other brilliant thing about the game is that it was the first game I ever played, and it may have been the OG, I don't know, that brought in this interesting system where before you play cards, right at the beginning, all players, and I recommend 2 or 3 players for this game.
Yeah.
Everyone plays a card face down. That represents the action that you want to take on your turn. Now, during that round, so everyone will then flip that card. Everyone gets to take those actions, but whoever chose to take that action
gets
the bonus version of that action, the special version of that action. And so you then have this other thing where you're trying to read everyone else's board, and you're trying to say, well, look, I think Nee is actually going to want to
Take
deliver,
development, yeah.
or do something else.
Settle or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So I think I'm going to get a free delivery out of this one. What I'm going to do instead, I'm going to settle a planet.
Because you're juggling what you want to do and what you need to do, but also you want to basically take.
But you can
the
take
most
advantage
out
of what they
absolutely.
Yeah.
This system's a good system. Like if you've played Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, it's the same thing that they brought into that game. It's that same system.
I think I have a game called San Juan, which I think is maybe predates
Possibly,
Race for the Galaxy with that mechanic, but doesn't do it anywhere near as well as Race for the Galaxy does.
I haven't played San Juan. That's why I'm wary to say it's the first one to do it. I don't know if it is. But I know, but it's done very, very well in this game. Race for the Galaxy is brilliant. There is so much game in a $30 box. The expansions then begin just basically give you more cards. Some of the expansions better facilitate for larger player counts or have solo modes and stuff, and they're all really good.
Do they have? Do the expansions have the Neba wins against Damien yet?
Nope.
I've played him 14 times and I've yet to beat him.
Wow.
I've come like within 1 point twice, and he's like, nope, I know exactly what your point's on.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn it! I'm gonna beat him, and when I do, it will be announced on this podcast.
I've played the game so many times.
Yeah.
So look, Race for the Galaxy, it's brilliant.
All right.
Good pick.
Nice.
I mean, I love that. I hate the fact that I haven't beaten you at it yet, but I love that pick for a number 8. And now, Ralph, let's go to you for your number 8 pick.
My number 8 pick is a game I've owned for many, many years now, and it's a big map game. I love a game with a good map. There's not really dice in this game. Sorry, Leo.
Boo.
But this game is Scythe. Scythe is a massive box, but in particular, what my number 8 is, Scythe Rise of the Fenris. This is an 8-game campaign mode of Scythe. So Scythe, typically, everyone sort of stays in their little corner of the map at the start, and you're farming resources and you're building your development and you're slowly expanding out. And then typically, towards the end of the game, you have a combat, and the game is typically over around that point. Generally takes an hour to play with 3 people or so. With Rise of the Fenris, it changes that formula every game. Every game, there's not necessarily new rules, but more different objectives. So normally it's first to get 6 stars scored, and there's
Yep.
different objectives on the map, like build all your buildings or make all your workers out on the map, that sort of thing. This changes that formula in very interesting ways and has a story to it as well. And you can purchase upgrades that stay with your clan or family, I guess. And there are things that happen where you change your clan or your family, the characters that you play. And it's just such an interesting way to view Scythe, the board game, because there's an actual story there.
What are some of the different objectives? Because my actual main gripe with Scythe is that most games sort of go the same path.
Yeah.
Like if you get this character, this is what you should be doing. And if I could have different objectives and a way to mix it up, I think that would almost
So I'm sort of
fix it for me.
treading on water here because there
You don't
are
wanna, like,
there are some
spoiler?
spoilers that I
Yeah,
don't
okay.
want
Yeah.
to put out into the public, but there are things that change your character's abilities.
Okay. Yep.
There are things that change the way your race starts.
Yeah.
Because you can carry things over to the following game, you might have an advantage against other players
Yeah.
or
okay.
a disadvantage if
Yeah.
you want. But the idea is you play these 8 games and highest score wins. Essentially,
Yeah.
it's actually the player who wins the final game wins the entire campaign.
Yeah. Okay.
So everything goes there. You
It's
can
just
do
setting up the whole.
the whole thing. You're building towards it,
Love
and
that.
because it's only 8 games long, you basically would smash it out over a few months. And
Yeah.
go, that was
Yeah.
really good. Let's play it again sometime.
Perfect.
Love
Yeah.
it.
All right. Well, that was number 8. So at this particular juncture, halfway through our episode, we will give a quick recap. So Ralph's 3 games were starting from 10, working our way up. We have Slay the Spire, Brass Birmingham, and Scythe, Rise of Fenris. For Damien, we have John Company 2nd Edition. We have Mage Knight and Race for the Galaxy. For myself, we have Gaia Project, Age of Steam, That and That's Not a Hat. Joel has Quacks of Quedlinburg, Dixit and Sky Team.
The heavy
And
games.
Leo has Space Base, Battlestar Galactica, and Dead Cells. And with that, we move on to number 7. And with that, we start with Mr. Ralph to work our way backwards.
So I don't have a lot of movement in my from here on out in my list. It's very similar to my previous year. Just
Oh, then I won't go
things
back
might
to that
just
tab and
rotate
spoil it for
Yeah,
myself.
don't do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Don't do that. But my number 7 game is a cooperative game. You can solo this, and it's recommended to do it with 2 hands, like being you play 2 characters in the game. But I think the most fun I've ever had in this game was at 3 or 4 players, and this game is Spirit Island. Spirit Island is a very complicated board game. It is infinitely replayable. There's so many different setups and different adversaries you can go up against. But essentially, you play as indigenous style spirits that the indigenous people of the land pray to. And basically, their land is being colonized by Europeans. And you want to protect that land and sort of guide the people to fight back against the colonizers. It's all very the theme is amazing and the artwork is absolutely incredible. It's really on point with the artwork, and the spirits you play are really thematic. One of my favorite spirits is this volcano guy, where you basically constantly build up until the point where you erupt and everything explodes around you. Or there's ones where you play as the ocean and you can drown the colonists and you can literally cause tsunamis to happen.
That's
And
my favorite.
What,
Right.
what I
I'm gonna have to
really
give this a go.
What I
It's,
re-
it's
what I
really
really love-
versatile.
What I really love about the theme as well is just the subtlety of the fact that from a game piece perspective, all of the natives are represented by wooden cubes.
Yes.
And the colonizers are all
plastic,
They're plastic but bright white.
Yeah.
So they are literally supposed to be it's I say subtle, but it is literally, hey, here's the nature and
The
here's
natural
plastic and
resources.
here's
Yeah.
and the contrast between the two is very they are not. They're not. It's not that they're not welcome here. It's like they're not
They're foreign.
from here. Like it is
Yeah.
very obvious that they feel like they're from a different game, and that's kind of
And
how they went about
The
it.
variety of this is you start out very weak, and the colonizers just constantly get stronger and stronger, and you slowly get stronger. But you have to find out the broken combination of cards you may choose to level up with with your other players,
Yep.
because essentially the way the turn order works is we basically program all our moves, and then it's an open table, and we go, oh Leo, you've got this amazing card, let me play this little card to make it better, and we can openly discuss all this as we're planning it out, because the game is punishing.
Oh, very punishing.
Very scalable too. So if you become really good at this game, you just go, let's make it harder to see if we win, because you can lose this game within the first half hour of you playing.
It's also one of those games that I really like where turn order doesn't matter so much as like the fast and slow cards. So your cards basically come in two forms. You got fast cards and you got slow cards. Fast cards happen earlier, slower cards happen later. And that's where the really interesting combinations come in, where you could have like one player is playing a particular fast card because you're playing a slower card. That will then trigger after that, but then basically either reinforce the benefit of the faster card, or basically faster card just primes the board, and then the slower card comes in and just finishes
because
the job.
the faster card is basically damage now,
Yeah.
but the slow card happens after the colonizers expand out further onto the board and build up. So the slow card may be more powerful, but you have to plan for what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And then there's so much variety in this game. I could talk about this game forever, but it really is. I had this game for a very, very long time, played it a lot, and I absolutely love it. Any opportunity I get to play it with 2 or 3 people.
Perfect. All right. Well, great choice and great game. Let's move on to you, Damien, for your number 7.
Number 7 represents the first, I don't know if it's a shock, but the first major mover in my top 10. It's been spoken about already. It is still one of my favorite games, but it has dropped just because I think the games I like playing now are a little bit different to the games. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Is it Gaia?
No.
I thought it was going to be Gaia.
First crossover.
I wrote it in there.
No.
It's Uno.
It's Brass Birmingham.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So,
Controversial.
yeah, maybe. Look, Brass Birmingham, it's still, I believe, at the time of the recording, number 1 game on BGG.
It is.
It doesn't take it away. It is a brilliant game.
That was your number 3 last year.
It was my number 3. I will still happily play it anytime.
Yeah.
It is fantastic, and I could sit here and say that for the rest of the recording. But the main reason why it's dropped is not because I have fallen out with the game or anything. It's just I've been playing other games that I prefer to play at the moment.
Fair enough.
So that's really it. I'm not going to say any more about Brass Birmingham. We've already spoken about it, and it probably will pop up again. Who knows?
We'll
But
see.
That's the first duplicate we've had.
It is
It
the
is,
first
yes.
duplicate. And with that, we move to me for my number 7 game. And this is not a duplicate. This is a new game. But this is also a new game to my top 10. And this is one of those games that... So I played for the first time this year. It is not a new game. It is an older game. And I will admit right off the get-go that I have only played one of these games. But this is a game that... when you play it, you know that this is your game. And I can tell you how much I know this is my game is because I put my 3D printer to work for over 40 hours to print out my own pieces for this game, because that's the only way you can get it currently at the moment. And that game is Container. Container is a game from the early 2000s. It is a game about basically just producing boxes, selling those boxes to your opponents, and then they have to take those boxes into the center island where we auction off those boxes back to every other player. And at the end of the game, for every box that you have purchased in this auction, those they're worth victory points, but everyone's value is different. So I may have the most value in red boxes, and Damo may have the most in blue, and Leo has the most in yellow. So I have to, but the way this game works and why I love this game so much is that it is twofold. Is that for an economy sort of game, the economy, one is a closed economy, so that means that there is no money ever injected into the game, well, rarely ever injected into the game, but the money that is in the game is all in very low units. And by that, I mean like you produce 2 boxes for $2 each. So I know the math very quickly is 4, and I'm going to sell them at $3 each.
Yep.
2 plus 2 is 4. That's right. And then I'm going to sell those boxes at 3. So I know that if you want to come and buy them, they're going to, the calculations are all, I'm good.
Sorry,
I'm 2 for 2.
I just got 2 by 2. Sorry, I'm catching up.
That's right. But that's why I really love this game, is that we played this at PlayCon. It was one of those games where the person who brought a print and play copy of this game, and I went, I reckon I could do this with my 3D printer. And I went, absolutely. So I went and figured it out, and I've done all of that because you can't buy. It's not in print at the moment. However, I have heard rumors that they are potentially going to be doing another version of this coming up very shortly.
Yeah, I just hope they print the original version, or at least a reskinned version of the original, because the anniversary edition that they printed
Yep.
was ridiculous, and the aftermarket value on that is obnoxious. If you think Battlestar
$400
Galactica is
an
expensive, this game is ridiculous.
For a game about selling boxes.
Yep.
Yes.
You can book yourself for $300-$400 easy, just because
That's
it is
incredible.
that rare. And they also had the anniversary edition and the anniversary jumbo edition, which is literally exactly what you think it is. The same game, just with
Bigger boxes.
Bigger boxes. That's exactly right. They're just containers. They are literally just shipping containers. But what I do love is that the ships are all designed away that you can actually put the containers on your ship and you move them all around. So
Nice.
I really enjoy it. Plays in about 2 hours, perfect time. I think it is one of those games that just sits right in the pocket of that perfect mid-weight kind of economic game with enough crunchiness that you sit there and you go, yep. As I said, I put my 3D printer to work and I now have a functional copy of this game. And I'm sorry, Damo, I was supposed to send you the island files, but I have not done that yet.
Fine.
That's fine. Anyway, but that's my number 7 game, which was Container. And now we're going to move to you, Joel, for your number 7.
Very nice. Look, after 3 really light games, we are not going to change that at all. At number 7, I
Right.
also have a crossover with my friend Leo over here. I believe it was the first game you mentioned, and this is Space Base.
It was his number 10.
For me, I won't touch on it too much. We've already spoken about it, but it's also my number 1 family game. It seems to make it to the table a lot. It's, as we said, it's self-balancing. I think it's really good. And the fact that you can go for whatever kind of strategy you want, and it's still going to work out. So for me, I had it a little bit higher over at number 7.
I love that you
gave it
say-
a bit more love.
I love that you say you can go for whatever strategy you want. It'll still work out. And I've had so
No,
many.
No, it doesn't.
No,
No,
that's very
strategy does
flat,
not
no.
work out.
But I love how
it
you
sounds
can
like a
just
skill
sort
issue.
of like. I love how you can just sort of pick a strategy and see if it works.
Yes,
out,
I love
that.
You know, like that's
Yes.
fun. That's exciting.
I do love that Space Base does allow you to be. You do care what other people roll, especially when
Yep.
you have a lot of cards that are based on the being the inactive player. So that's why I really adore Space Base, because you are always involved in that turn. Like it didn't make my
Yeah.
top 10. It's
No doubt.
I can tell you it's my 39th ranked game at the moment. But I have played so many games that like if it's made anywhere in my top 50, it's like I really really love that game.
Yeah,
So.
like I originally had it lower, and every time I looked at it not in my top 10 list, it didn't feel right.
There are some games
The
like
amount
that,
of times that it's made it to the table, it just felt like it deserved the respect.
I
to be
would
in
love
there,
to know
so.
why they put so much effort into listing out like 100 spaceships at the end
Yeah,
of the
I
rule
know.
book.
You know what? You know what? What is it? Overachieving is underappreciated or something like that. There's a saying like that. I've heard something.
I
Anyway.
don't know if I have that in my rule book.
Anyway.
Maybe there's another print. I'm not
Maybe,
sure.
sure.
maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's
it's,
a good.
it's at the very back of the
Yeah.
last 2 pages or so.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Now that was our second crossover, and let's move to Leo for your number 7.
Sounds good. My number 7 completes my thematic trifecta. So I said Battlestar Galactica, I had Dead Cells. For my number 7, I'm going to go for a really heavy war game, which is unlike me. I don't have many of these in my collection, but it is War of the Ring,
Nice.
second edition.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I had my eye on this game for a long time, but I was intimidated by the complexity, the play length, all of the things. But my love for the theme and the trilogy and, wanting to be able to emulate that kind of won out. And I said, well, what the hell, I'm going to give it a go. And I absolutely love the game. It is hard to learn initially, and it is a long slog the first time you play it. And you are constantly referring to the rule book and, you're going to make mistakes. But if you stick it through, you get some of the best stories. You get some of the best, game experiences with 2 players. So it is a 2-player game. And essentially what you're doing is each player is taking a side. One is going to be the side of good. You're going to be the fellowship. You're going to be trying to get, 2 objectives, either win through military victory, or you're going to try to win by putting the ring into Mount Doom. Or you're going to play the bad guys, and the bad guys are just there to wipe out, annihilate, and win military victory. And so it's an asymmetric 2-player game. You have different strengths on each side, and it's done in a way that really you feel like you're playing through the trilogy, and you feel like you're really there, and you're making your own story, like you're putting your own spin on it. You know, if you go for the ring victory, you get that tension at the end where you're like, am I going to make it? Am I going to get corrupted to the point where I'm going to lose? Or am I going to, you know, scrape my way up to the top of the mountain and throw the ring in? Like, there's just a lot of those great stories and great moments that you kind of emulate. And it's just a good time. Like, it is a war game, so you're going to be fighting a lot.
Are you constantly quoting the films as you're playing?
You're constantly kind of baffled that things are playing out in weird ways at times.
okay.
Like, why on earth has Gimli gone down to Gondor? Or like, you know, why is this
It's just
character end
funny,
up?
that situation.
Yeah, weird little things like that happen, and but it's all part of the fun. The battles are really well done. There are dice, so you know, points for that. It's just good. I don't know if anyone else at the table has
have
had
not
some
played
experience
this.
with it.
I just traded for it.
So
Okay.
not yet, but someone will.
Okay, so yet to be.
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
to
had
be.
my eye to play this one for a while as
Yeah.
well. It looks really good.
Mm.
Like just the fact that it's so massive and it looks so amazing, but I can appreciate it does look intimidating and it's very rules
It comes
heavy.
with 2 full-size game boards.
It does. So you,
Right.
you join two halves of the
Two
board
halves.
to make one gigantic board.
Love
So you
that.
do need
That's pretty cool.
quite a bit of table space.
Yeah, and how long's the play for? Like 3 hours or so?
I mean, it
Or-
depends.
Okay.
You could, you know, the first time I played it, I actually ended up playing shorter than I expected because the military victory sort of came earlier.
Yeah.
But typically, you're looking at least 3 hours.
That's awesome.
Also depends on whether you're playing with someone who has a lot of like analysis paralysis. You know, like
Yeah,
if you
sure.
can keep the turns moving,
Mm.
it's not too bad.
I do love how that at the beginning of this you described putting the ring into into Mount Doom, as if they just walked in and went, "Boop! I'm just going to put it in
Yeah.
Mount Doom." There we go. And that's
like a
the-
nice-
You can also
little
get the Eagles
template.
expansion where they just drop it in.
Ah,
No,
yes,
that's-
they
that's-
dive bomb it.
You have to yell
Fantastic.
Kirby as well. Just
Love
give it
that.
a launch.
But yeah,
All right, and that's going to take us to the end of our 7th pick, and now we move on to the into the final game of part 1, which is
Yeah.
number 6. All right, Leo, we're going to you now to come back towards for our final game of part 1 for our top 10. So this is 10 to 6. This is our last one. Take us away, will you, please, sir?
I will. So my number 6. So I talked about War of the Ring, which is a 2-player game.
Yep.
This is also a 2-player game. The last one on my list. It is a very enduring game for me that I have played for a very long time and loved for a very long time. And it is the wonderful Seven Wonders Duel.
Great choice.
And I remember getting this game, not knowing much about it, but just hearing that it was a great 2-player game. And the more I played it, the more I loved it. My wife and I would play it constantly. I'd find other excuses to play with other people as well. It's wonderful because, in my opinion, because the rules, the mechanics, the flow of the game all come together beautifully. It plays relatively quickly, but it gives you so many decisions, so many fun decisions along the way. It's competitive, but not like in a necessarily in-your-face aggressive way. There are some moments that can be like that, like, and you know, you've got to do a bit of calculation because essentially you've got a shared market of cards, and it's set up in a way that, you know, you can't access certain cards until
Yeah.
others are uncovered.
Yep.
And so sometimes you're doing some calculations. If I take this card, then the other player's going to take that one, then I can take this one, and then, you know, that's the one I really want. So you've got to play it a certain way. And there's many paths to victory. There's many ways to sort of try to get victory points. You can collect cards that help you get better at military and battle. You can collect cards that help you win via science victory. So there's, you know, all those different paths and different strategies you can take. It's got that Seven Wonders theme if you've played Seven Wonders the game before, but it's actually very different. It has some similarities, but to me feels fairly different.
It definitely feels like a different game.
Just great. Just like I've never found a 2-player game that's beat it for me personally. And I know that the Lord of the Rings version of it is out, and I have played that, but I don't know. For me, still the OG is best.
If you would like to come and join us in a tournament, you can come and join
Yes.
our Board Game Gateway Facebook group, and there you'll find a link to a Board Game Arena tournament that we're about to hold in the new year / over the holiday period. So if this is something that you'd like, and you'd like to come join us, go and search. We are facebook.com/groups/ Board Game Gateway, and you find the link there. I believe it's
We
pinned.
all
Great
participating in that?
I am in it.
I mean,
I feel bad for you guys.
I'm
Like,
definitely
why
in it.
even-
I was
why
gonna
bother?
say so.
I think there's like,
So hold- so
I think there's like 10
Burn.
people in it at the moment. last I checked.
So
Or
you
7.
guys in it, you refer to yourselves as participants? That's very bold. Of you.
It's
There
funny.
you go.
I was just about to mention, like, for this game, out of all the games that didn't make my top 10, this has probably got the most play hours for me out of all of them. And I think it's almost why it didn't make it is I play it so much online now that it never makes it to the table anymore for me. So it's weird. Like I really enjoy playing it and the mechanics of it, but there's just something about the time to set it up and that sort of thing that it just ends up almost being an online game for me now, which I still really, really love, and it's probably got the most hours of any like online board game for me.
Again, this is one of those games. I took my 3D printer to work and I printed out there's files for the card setup for each of 3 ages. So everyone
Which is
just like
just
slap them on and put them in,
That's
and it's just
cool.
got them all there.
I have to print me one.
Yeah, I've traveled a fair bit with this game, and on that rainy day where you're stuck in a room, you can't go anywhere. My wife and I have brought this game out, and we've had an absolute blast with this.
This was the first game I said to my wife. I said to her, I cannot take it easy on you in this game, because the moment I take it easy on you, you're that good at it now that you will beat me. Like I actually have to play my hardest here to beat you now. There's no more like, there's no more kitty gloves anymore. It's like this is going to be a proper let's go. And this is one of the few games that she has actually beaten me at, and it's like I'm super impressed when she does every time. So.
I would say, just to round out on this one, I did recently get the Pantheon expansion.
100% need it.
Look, I mean, I don't know. I can play with or without it, but I do really appreciate how tightly like how nicely integrated it is with the base.
Yes.
It doesn't overdo things. It
No.
doesn't overcomplicate things. It just adds an extra layer that's also fun. So it's purely optional in my mind, but it's great fun to add on as well.
It adds enough that it feels different too, though. It's not just like, oh, they just wanted to make another expansion and they've slapped something on. Like
Exactly.
it genuinely changes the game
Yes.
in a positive way if you like it that way.
Yep.
It just, it's a great game.
Does it fit in the base box?
It does.
does
Yeah,
it.
okay, I'm happy to get
You
that.
do need to 3D print.
come
I had to 3D print an insert, but I did it, and it absolutely does fit in there.
You don't have to.
For those of us
You don't have
peasants
to,
that
but it
don't have a
does.
3D printer,
But it does. I did it. I did it at the time. I had access to one. This was actually before I owned one. This was actually one at the local library. But you can. It will. I don't know if Agora fits in there, but definitely Pantheon does. Anyway, let's move on as we get towards the end of this episode. Joel, for your final game of these 10 to 6, let's hear your number 6 game.
So this is probably the first game on my top 10 that I'll mention that has a weighting above 1. It is a little bit hard, not crazy. This is an engine building game, and it's quite a popular one. But I think of all the engine building games, this is the most satisfying one. When you build an engine in an engine building game, you want to get to the end and then feel like your engine's really pushing along, like you've really built something. And for that reason, this is TFM, Terraforming Mars, is actually at my number 6 spot. Yeah, look, this is quite a popular game. Like a lot of people are going to know about it. I almost didn't include it because it almost felt like a bit of a cop-out. Just the fact that everybody loves it, but I couldn't not include it in the list. So I've put it in at number 6. Something that I really do like about this game is the player agency in what kind of route or what kind of way you would like to play the game. Majority of them will work, some definitely more than others, but if you want to really push the game and go really fast and you want to build a lot on the board, or you'd really like to collect science cards this time, or maybe next time you want to do space, doesn't matter which version you want to do, you'll be able to explore that option and still have a great chance at winning. And I think it's really good to be able to explore the different strategies. I think I've probably played 20 to 30 games of this, and there's still more ways that I want to try out and still different strategies that I want to explore. The only other thing that I really like about this game is for an engine building game, which is typically you're sort of sitting in your own board, I think it has just the right amount of player interaction where I am building my engine, but I still need to just make sure that I'm going to get that milestone first, or that I do want to get the award, and when do I get that? And it's got just the right amount of tension for me for a game where when I am building an engine, I'm probably mostly to myself. But yeah, it's for me, for all of those reasons, it's at number 6.
Great. All right. Well, we're going to move on to my game for number 6, and this is a new one again. This is the second last new game to my top 10, and this is one that I had the pleasure of playing this year, and I've actually played more than one game. I've actually played nearly 4 to 5 of this in a short period of time. This is a space-themed game in which you will be basically attacking each other in interesting strategy ways, and it has one of the most unique ways of playing that I think has come out recently. This game is Arcs by Leader Games. This is one of those games that when I saw the reviews come out, I went, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not a big... Like, I like Root. I own Root. I'm not a big fan of Oath.
There was almost too many good reviews, right?
Yeah, and
it
I'm just
was-
like, oh, I don't know. This just doesn't look like it. I'd like it. But the system of playing in which you have to use card rules of leading and following, I'm like, and then I played it and I went, oh no, I truly get this game. This is really good. And from the first game, I went, this is great. Arcs is a game that I believe had no right to be as good as it was, but I think the experience that Leader Games have had from Root and Oath following up, they've taken the best parts of both of those games and created a system that works spectacularly. I do think the game really does shine as soon as you add the Law and Leaders expansion, which is a mini expansion that you need to get. I highly think it actually makes the game super thematic. When I played it,
Does it come in the base box?
no, it doesn't come in the
Oh,
base box.
really?
You have to get
okay.
extra. But every time that I play with Law and Leaders, it really does make me feel like I am actually playing a character in a universe, and I actually have a thematic way of being able to play this game going forward. So I highly recommend, if you have not had a chance to play Arcs yet, you really should. It is my number 6 game, and I cannot wait to play more of it. It's actually on my it's on my wish list for my Christmas presents this week. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, family who happens to be watching this right now.
So this is a game that you don't have in your own collection yet.
No.
It's made it into your top 10. That's
No,
impressive.
absolutely. There are a few games like that where that has happened. Age of Steam is one of those games as well that I don't have in my collection yet, but I have. Thankfully, this is what is a good thing about being.
I think that's what happened last year too. A lot of
I was
your
gonna
top
say,
games
like,
you didn't own.
yeah,
Like, there was a
I
few of
actually
them.
don't think there's a single one in my top 10 that I don't own.
Well, here's
maybe,
the thing.
maybe I buy too many
We
games.
happen to be part of such a fantastic active gaming group that I've been able to
Yeah.
play these games multiple times because they happen to be on other people's lists and they keep bringing them, so I get to keep
Can't
playing
someone else buy it?
them. Well, there are a few games, and you'll see in my top 5 there are a couple more games like this, but I am actually planning on rectifying this situation so that I'll own every game in my top 10. That's
Nice.
That's something that I've got planned. But Arcs is my number 6. And now for our number 6 for Mr. Damien, we'll move to you. Hey, that's a nice cup of tea you got there.
It's a
sir.
nice cup of
Yeah,
tea.
it is.
For my number 6, it is a game that I do own. I own a lot of stuff for this game. It's dropped a little bit. Again, not because it's a bad game, just because I haven't played it as much. I've played other games.
Damien's growing up.
It's unfortunately it's the tried and tested Lovecraftian theme that appears in board games, but it still does Lovecraftian the best of any board games. I won't dig into it too much because I won't steal someone else's thunder here, but it is Arkham Horror, the living card
Nice.
game. It is
Why? Who at this table would certainly have
no
that?
idea.
No idea.
No idea.
So what do you like about Arkham Horror, Damon?
It's cards. I like cards.
Yeah, any game with cards.
Any game with cards,
with
Dave.
cards is good.
Nah, Arkham-
Instantly
it's-
becomes one
it's
of Leo's
living.
not
It's
top
living.
10.
No, it's a brilliant card game that you can play either solo or co-op. I really like it at 3 players. Everyone takes takes a role of an investigator, and you then get to walk away and you get to build your 30. Typically, it's a 30 card deck. Sometimes it could be like there are 25 card decks or larger decks as well, depending on the investigator. Every investigator, investigators come in different classes. They're all unique in terms of special cards that they add, and every investigator gets both special ability cards and a special weakness that you have to include in your deck. Weaknesses are bad, special abilities are really good, and essentially your job is to go through a particular map. The map is also nothing more than a set of cards, and often you need to investigate, fight monsters, and
Uncover the storyline.
and just run with the storyline. Every map is not just about investigating and fighting monsters. There will be every scenario, I should say, not every map. It's more complex than that. Will have things you need to do, objectives that you need to achieve, all the while making sure that you do it before you reach the third, or it's usually a third stage for that particular scenario. So there is a progression in the game where every single round there are horror tokens that come out, and every single time there are a certain number of horror tokens that come out, that particular scenario reaches a new chapter. Once it gets to normally the 3rd chapter, some scenarios have more, it will then that kind of marks the end of the scenario, and all the while more monsters are appearing on the map. Things are becoming more difficult to investigate. The game has a wonderful progression in it, and I really love it. And then from scenario to scenario, assuming normally you want to be successful, but there are odd rules where
where sometimes a fail is actually a success. I won't spoil too much
Yeah,
there.
generally it's got like a fail forward
Yeah.
momentum to the game.
But what you typically get is you then get XP that you can use. So you get this like almost a la Diablo style of build up, but instead of actually having particular stats, you're buying new cards, so you can modify your hero's deck or your investigator's deck in ways that you think suit not just you but the other investigators that you're working with. So brilliant game. I've spent far too much money on it.
That's not possible.
And
Yeah.
I'm not going to say any more about it.
I do want to say, like, I think it was this year, towards the start of the year, Damo, you and I were in a 3-player campaign of Carcosa, which is the second storyline campaign area of the game. But you construct your deck before you play, and I made a deck that was very much, let me take on all the hurt, and so my other 2 investigators can actually do constructive things.
Yeah.
But every time, once I got established, it meant my character was almost useless. But that was so interesting because it made the environment just so much safer for my other co-investigators.
Yeah.
Right,
And it was just such an interesting way to tackle the game forward.
Yeah, okay.
So their game offers very unique opportunities that you can actually, the ways you change to play every scenario.
Yeah,
Which
and
is really interesting.
I think for that, my character was all about taking an action, and then I'd basically have to draw a token out of the bag, and assuming I didn't draw a fail, I think I'd take that card back, and that's something that you don't normally get to do, but it was really, really great getting to watch kind of like these really sort of these scenarios where I would try and evade and then backstab enemies and things like that. It was great.
All right. Cool. And Mr. Ralph, would you please round us out for your number 6 game for
My
this
number
part
6
1?
game. Well, it has already been mentioned by someone on this table. I'm an event gamer. I love when I want to play a big game. I want to get together with my mates and just spend the afternoon with each other and have an absolute ball of a time doing that. And I love a good beer and pretzels game that basically is a game that you can sort of chill and watch what happens and sort of have a good time with, but also stay involved. But I've had so much fun with this game again. John's Company 2nd edition. Like you've all mentioned, this game creates stories. I've been in the position in this game in the past where I've basically been out of the game. I'm not going to win. There's only one winner. Like, why am I still doing this? And then I'm just going to cause a bit of chaos. My goodness, that chaos one player can cause is amazing. So you're having fun even if you don't think you're in contention to win. Because that's all it is about just being with your mates and having a good time. And even though you're causing that chaos, people aren't necessarily angry at you for it. It's more, I understand why you're doing this.
Well, you mean like spending like, was it £23 to basically force a vote to go in the wrong direction because you thought you were out of the game, and then only to realize, I had a shot at this in the end.
That was a recent example, yes. But there've been other examples. I've played this game maybe 6 or 7 times now because it is a game that we rarely bring out because it takes a full afternoon get together, and that's quite hard to organize. And it's not necessarily a game you can show anyone. People need to be prepared to play that type of game. You can definitely teach anyone, but you have to understand the type of game it is. But yeah, this game is absolutely incredible. Everything is on the table, is tradable. There's not really any rules around that. So people are making deals left, right, and center. I love a game where you can tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, do you want to go chat in the other room? And I do that
all the time
in a lot of games that I play. Not just like negotiation games. It's more like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. What's your plan? Like openly talking about that. So it is semi-cooperatively, and I love working together towards a common goal. But it's fun to see how people behave when they realize I'm in it for me.
Yeah.
And that happens. I do it a lot, but it's fun when you see other players do that as well. And John's Company is a game that absolutely nails that for me.
All right. Fantastic. Okay, so to give you a recap here, this is going to bring it to the end of part number 1 of our top 10 special. And we'll go through the games real quick. So Leo's game, starting from 10, working our way up, is Space Base, Battlestar Galactica, Dead Cells, War of the Ring 2nd edition, and Seven Wonders Duel. Joel's is Quacks of Quedlinburg, Dixit, Sky Team, Space Base, and Terraforming Mars. Myself is Gaia Project, Age of Steam, That's Not a Hat, Container, and Arcs. Mr. Damien has got John Company 2nd edition, Edition, Mage Knight, Race for the Galaxy, Brass Birmingham, and Arkham Horror, the living card game. And Ralph, to close us out, has got Slay the Spire, Brass Birmingham, Scythe, Rise of Fenris, Spirit Island, and John Company 2E. That's going to bring us to the end of the part 2. So we've got part 1 coming up only in a couple of days' time. Normally it's a week or 2 weeks, but this is going to be in a couple of days' time. So if you don't want to miss our 5-to-1 special, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button down below. Ring the bell to make sure that you get notified of any of our uploads here on YouTube. And in your podcasting app of choice, make sure you hit like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, all that stuff. No, we'll see you in part 1 coming up shortly. And until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Isn't this part 1?
No, this is part 2. Well, yeah. Well, okay. We'll see you in part 2. Yeah. It's been a long time. I'll see you in part.
It's like he's on a roll. Just let
Is he
him
going
run
to
with it.
edit this to be the start? Like,
No, well, I'm definitely editing
Well,
this
it
so
is a
this is the end.
countdown. so
Wait a minute. I'm definitely
yeah,
editing.
part
I'm
one.
definitely
so that
editing
you should
this to
listen
be
to
the
part 1 first and then listen to part 2.
Yeah, maybe we'll find out. I don't know. We'll see how the editing goes down at this point.
I don't even know if there is an editing
Yeah.
at this point.
Well, kill Ralph.